Hello everyone. So today we will start with the remaining part of the second module. So in the syllabus for second module, we have we have completed some of the parts, like we have seen this memory mapping, bitband operations, and CMSIS. So this part is already done. Yet we are yet to complete the important topics in this module regarding the instruction sets and programming. That is, we have this assembly basics, instruction list and instruction descriptions, and some useful instructions. Apart from that, we also have assembly and C language programming, where we'll be seeing what are the steps in programming, including some of the example programs. Okay, so we shall begin with this topic today. This is the last part that is remaining in this particular subject. So we have ARM Cortex M3 instruction set and programming in this module. So first, we will look at some of the basics of the assembly language programming. So in assembly language or the assembler language, we have basic syntax. Okay, so which follows this particular format. There will be a label, which is of course optional, then opcode followed by operands. Okay, so then after the semicolon, we are going to write the comments. So this is the basic syntax or the format of writing assembly language instruction: opcode followed by operands. Okay, so then these comments to indicate what this operation will do, and the label, which will give a shortcut to you. Instead of using the address, you can use this label to indicate a particular address, a line of address indicating a particular line of code. Okay, so some of the instructions might have a label in front of them, so that the address of the instructions can be determined using the label. Okay, so whenever this particular instruction is decoded, I mean, when it is compiled, when it is converted into machine language, these labels will be, they will be replaced with their assembly, they will be replaced with their addresses. Okay, so wherever this particular line of code lies, it will have a particular address, right? So that address, this, it is indicated by a label here. So that label, again, it will be replaced by its address whenever you convert this code into machine language. Okay, so then followed by the label, you have opcode followed by number of operands. So different instructions have different number of operands. Okay, that again depends on the type of the instruction that we are going to use. Opcode, it is called the operation code, which is machine language or assembly language form of a particular instruction. A group of bits in machine language will be given a particular opcode, okay, to indicate what type of operation is being performed. So it's called operation code, or in short, opcode. So normally the first operand is the destination in our assembly languages. First operand we use is the destination, right? Then whatever the others we have, they'll be the source. Some operation will be performed, and the result will be stored in operand 1. Okay, that will be the destination. The number of operands depends on the type of the instruction, and the syntax format of operand can also be different based on the type of the instruction. For example, you have this particular instruction. Immediate data are usually in the form hash number. You use hash, to write the immediate data. You might have seen this in 8051 programming. Hash, if you write hash followed by a number, that means immediate data. For example, if you write move r0, hash 0x12, this means the immediate data 12h. If you write 0x12, that means it is in hexadecimal. Immediate data 12h is copied into the register R0. Okay, so you can also write it like this, like move r1 hash a in inverted commas, like this. Okay, so if you write a like this means it is the ASCII value of a, capital A. What is the ASCII value of capital A? It is 41h. In hexadecimal, it is 41. In decimal, it is 65, or in hexadecimal, it is 41h. When you write it with hash A, that means its ASCII value 41h will be stored in register R1. Okay, so these are immediate data addressing modes. Okay, so there are different addressing modes again, like you have in any other microcontroller. The text after each semicolon is a comment. What you write after the semicolon, that is the comment. That will not have any effect on the program operation. These will not be compiled, but they make the programs easier for humans to understand. This will not be compiled, but when you read this, you will understand what the code is, right? By reading this, you can understand or trace what the program is going to do. That is the use of writing the comments. In assembly language, comments are written after a semicolon. So apart from instructions, we also have some things called directives. You might have studied in 8086 microprocessors and microcontrollers also about directives. These directives, they are instructions to the compiler, right, or the assembler, and they are not the actual part of the instruction set. For example, this EQU. EQU is a directive which is used to define certain constants. Okay. For example, if you write this, you are going to define something in a vectored interrupt controller. You are defining something. Okay. NVIC IRQ set the number. Okay. Set exception number EQU. This is the definition. This value will be loaded into this variable. Okay, so this value will be loaded into this variable. Rather, you call this a constant. It will be constant throughout the execution of the program with this value. So instead of using this number, you can use this name in the programs. Similarly, this value, it can be defined as 1 in hexadecimal 1. The enable bit, the interrupt request enable bit is defined as 1. Instead of writing 1, we can use this name of that particular variable in the programs. For example, here you have defined it first. NVIC IRQ set exception number EQU, this one. So this number, instead of using this number every time in the program, we can use this name. Okay. So LDR R0 comma is equal to this particular thing. So what this means is LDR means you are going to load the register with the particular value. Okay. So it's a pseudo instruction that convert to a PC relative load by assembler. So wherever this particular thing will be there, its address, this when you write EQU this thing, the address of this particular thing will be copied into R0. Okay. So then move R1 comma hash NVIC. This means hash NVIC. This means it is an immediate addressing mode where this will be replaced by its value, that is 1. So R1 will be 1. Okay, R1 will be 1. Then you want to store this. LDR is load instruction, STR is store register. Okay, you are going to store contents of R1 into the contents of memory indicated by the register R0. In R0, what do you have? The address of this particular thing. Okay, R0 has the address of this particular thing. So in the address, in the memory location pointed by this address, we are going to store R1. In store instruction, R1 will be the source, this will be the destination. Okay, so R1 will have this particular thing 1, so that 1 will be stored into the memory location pointed by the address pointed by R0. Okay, so this is actually you are going to enable interrupt request 0 by writing R1 to the address in R0. So it's an example of a program. In the context you will understand this. Here we are just trying to understand the concept of directives. EQU is used to define or to define certain constants. Okay, with some names. Next you have DCB stands for define constant byte. Also DCD or define constant data. Okay, so if it is a byte, for byte size constant values like characters and all, you can use DCB. Fine. If it is a data, like for word size constant values to define binary data, we can use define constant data DCD. Okay. For example, here we have this my number DCD, a word, right? It's a 32-bit number. You are defining it and storing my number with this particular value. My number DCD this thing. Okay. So then there is a character, this hello/n. This is a string, right? String means it is a set of characters. Character means each of these, they are ASCII values. H means it has got an ASCII 8-bit value. E, small e stands for some 8-bit value. So all of these, they are byte-sized values. So they will be stored using DCB directive. So hello text is the name you have given, and DCB followed by the text, whatever it is. Okay. Comma 0 means it has ended. Comma 0 is used to indicate that the text or the string has ended. So you can write this, you can print this particular string using this set of lines. So first you are loading the address of this. Okay. LDR R3 comma my number. So get the memory address value of my number. the address of this particular, wherever this is in the memory location, its address will be copied into R3. Then LDR R4 comma R3 in the brackets. In the brackets, if you write R3, it is indirect addressing mode. That is, contents of the memory location pointed by R3 is copied into R4. So the value code, this code, you know, it is copied into R4. Okay, from this particular address, you are copying the value into R4. Now, LDR R0 comma is equal to hello text means you are getting the starting address of the text, hello text. Okay, starting address of this is copied into R0. Then you are calling some function print text. So this function has to be written separately. So this is not an entire code. It's only a part of code to indicate the use of these particular directives. Okay. So what happens here is we are using this BL. BL stands for branch with the link. Okay. It's a branch instruction, like, you know, a jump instruction or a call instruction, some branching instruction. We are branching to a label, you know, this a function which is indicated using this label print text. So after this, you are going to call that particular function, and with link. With link means after executing that particular function, you are coming back to the same place from where you had branched. Okay. So this is the way you can define certain bytes and some words using DCB and DCD assembler directives. Apart from this, a number of data definition directives are also available for insertion of constants inside the assembly code. Inside the assembly code, you can insert certain constants by using certain directives. For example, there is one more directive, DCI, stands for define constant instruction. Okay, so this is used to code an instruction if the assembler cannot generate the exact instruction that you want. Okay, so all the assembler instructions, they will have machine codes, right? They will have their equivalent machine language code. Sometimes when you assemble, the assembler has limitations and it might not be able to generate exact machine code. In that case, if you know the machine code or the binary code, you can directly define that code by using this DCI instruction. Okay, this is an example where you're using DCI 0xBE00. This is the binary code for a particular instruction, that is breakpoint. Breakpoint in the sense, at that particular line of the code, you are inserting a breakpoint to debug the part of the code, right? So, you know, if the assembler is not able to generate that, you can directly write that machine instruction by using DCI. This is actually the machine instruction for breakpoint. Okay, so some of the directives can be used this way also. Apart from this, you know, in assembler language, in case of Cortex or ARM processors, we use certain suffixes for instruction. Okay, major suffixes are suffixes in the sense, after the instruction we add this particular thing. S is one of the suffix. S stands for status. Okay, S stands for status. So what happens when you use S, and how do you use that S? Okay, you know, add instruction. Add instruction is used to add the number of operands, right? So after add, if you write S, add S, that means after addition, the status flags will be updated. Okay, S indicates update the application program status register. What do you have in application program status register? We have studied in the first module, that is APSR. APSR contains different flags, and those flags indicate the status of your controller, right? So after addition, if you want to update the status of these flags, you know, you have to add this S suffix along with your instruction. Okay, so if you do not add this, you know, it will not update the APSR. If you add this S, then only it will update the APSR. Okay, add S R0, R1 means R1, R0 and R1 are added, and the sum is stored in R0, and the status flags are updated. Okay, that's the implication of this suffix. Apart from this, you know, we also have some suffixes, some 15 different suffixes. We are going to see them later. Some are defined here, like given here, like EQ stands for equal, NE stands for not equal, LT stands for less than, GT stands for greater than. They are used in conditional instructions for conditional execution. Okay, for example, one example is given here, BEQ. B is the branch instruction. Okay, B is the branch instruction. Along with B, if I write EQ, this means BEQ, that means branch if equal. You're going to check the condition of something. Before this instruction, you are doing some operation, okay, or comparing something. If the compared things are equal, then you branch or jump to a particular label. So that can be written directly using BEQ. This stands for branch if equal. The same thing can be written as BNE. BNE would stand for branch if not equal, or BLT stands for branch if less than. BGT stands for branch if greater than. So that way you can use the suffixes to generate more instructions by adding the suffixes to the primitive instructions. So B is the primitive instruction. To that, if you add the suffix, you will get one more instruction. Okay, so that way in ARM processors we have the use of suffixes. So we will see this in detail when we come to these particular examples. So for the Cortex M3, the conditional execution suffixes are usually used for branch instructions. However, other instructions can also be used with the conditional execution suffixes if they are inside the if-then instruction block. When you are using if-then block, if-then means conditional statements. Other instructions can also be used with suffixes if it is within that. In those cases, the S suffix and the conditional execution suffixes can be used at the same time. Okay, we will see that when we get the examples. One more concept in this assembler language of ARM processor is the concept of unified assembler language. Unified assembler language means we are going to use combination of 16-bit and 32-bit instructions. So we have studied this in the first module itself. Then in ARM, we are using thumb 2 instruction set. Thumb 2 instruction set, in the sense it is combination of both 16-bit thumb instructions and certain 32-bit ARM instructions, right? So with this, it supports and gets the best out of the thumb 2 instruction set. So with this UAL, the syntax of thumb instructions is the same as for ARM instructions. Okay, so actually the ARM instruction means 32-bit, thumb instruction is 16-bit. But in UAL, we are going to use the same syntax because it is following thumb 2 instructions. Okay, that's why it is a common or unified assembler language, which is having a common syntax for both ARM code and thumb code. That's why we can mix these ARM instructions and thumb instructions. So it makes it easier to port the applications between the ARM code and thumb code by using the same syntax for both. So we will see what is the difference between this ARM and thumb instruction. If it is a thumb instruction, okay, so add instruction is given like this: add R0, R1. This is a normal thumb instruction, or you can say any 16-bit instruction which you have already studied will be of this format: add R0, R1. This is traditional thumb syntax. What we are doing here, contents of R1 and R0 and R1 are added, and the result is stored in R0. Right? This is the destination. So if it is in UAL, in thumb 2, okay, equivalent instruction using UAL syntax will be like this. Here you have an option to change your destination. Okay, so if you want to copy the sum in some other register, you can do that in UAL. But if you want the same operation, in UAL, it is unified assembler language, it will be like this: add R0, R0, R1. That means R0 and R1 are added and the sum is stored in R0. Okay, suppose here you use R1, you can also do that. If you write add R1, R0, R1, then R0 and R1 are added and the sum is stored in R1. So whatever you write here, you have an option to change the destination in case of UA. Okay, so just these are the differences between traditional thumb and UAL syntaxes. So still, the traditional thumb syntax can also be used in the unified assembler language. The choice between whether the instructions are interpreted as traditional thumb or the new UAL is normally defined by the directive. Okay, the directive, if you use in the program header, if you use the directive code 16, that means it is 16-bit traditional thumb instruction. If you use the directive thumb, that means it is the new UAL syntax, which is combination of both 16 and 32-bit. Okay, the directive code 16 indicates that it is traditional thumb instruction, and the thumb directive indicates that it is new UAL instruction with the new UAL syntax. Okay, that is the way you can define the different syntaxes of the instructions, either traditional thumb instruction or new UAL syntax. So one thing we need to be careful with reusing traditional thumb is that some instructions, they change the flags in APSR even if the S suffix is not used. In traditional thumb instruction, even if you do not use S in this case, for example, if you do not use S and R0, R1, if you write like this, it will update the APSR even if you do not put S, because in traditional thumb instruction that S suffix, it was not defined actually. It is a part of UAL syntax. So even if you do not put S, those flags will be updated. But in UAL syntax, whether the instruction changes the flag or not, it depends on the S suffix. If you use the S suffix, then only the flags will be updated. So and S R0, R0, R1. If you do this, then the flag will be updated because you have used this S suffix. If you do not use S suffix, if you write and R0, R0, R1, the flags will not be updated. Okay. So with these instructions, that is in UAL, some of the operations can be handled by either a thumb instruction or a 32-bit, or a thumb 2 instruction. Okay, so you have a choice whether to use a 16-bit instruction or a 32-bit instruction. For example, the operation R0 is equal to R0 plus 1. This is a simple thing. You are adding 1 to a register and storing that value back into the register. This can be implemented in two different ways. One is you can use the 16-bit thumb instruction. That is the traditional way. The other one is you can use 32-bit thumb 2 instruction. Okay. So with UAL, you can specify which instruction you want by using certain suffixes. Okay. Suppose you do this, add S R0, #1. Okay. So this is a 16-bit thumb instruction by default. Since it is a smaller size, it uses a 16-bit thumb instruction to perform this. By default, it will use a 16-bit thumb instruction to perform this particular thing. Suppose you want to specifically make it a 16-bit instruction, you can use the suffix n. You can use the suffix .n. This .n will make use of the 16-bit thumb instruction for any given instruction. If you use add s .n R0, #1, the instruction will be a 16-bit thumb instruction. But suppose you want to make it as a 32-bit thumb 2 instruction, 32-bit instruction, 32-bit thumb 2 instruction, you need to use this .w, which indicates wide. That means the instruction is 32-bit instruction. The same instruction, it will take 32 bits in the memory. So what do I mean when I say 16-bit and 32-bit instruction? So when they are converted to machine language, they occupy 16-bit. That means it is a 16-bit instruction. If they occupy 32 bits, that means it is a 32-bit instruction. Okay. Certain instructions, for them it is sufficient to be 16-bit instructions. But certain instructions need 32-bit instructions. In that case only, we shall go for 32-bit instructions. And that can be done explicitly by mentioning .w. If you want to explicitly use 16-bit, you can mention .n. But by default, if you do not mention any suffixes, it will take by default either 16-bit or 32-bit, whichever is suitable for that, and always it will go for smaller code size. Okay, if you do not use any suffixes, it will choose so that the instruction will have a smaller code size. Yeah, the .w suffix, it specifies a 32-bit instruction. If no suffix is given, the assembler tool can choose either instruction. Either instruction, that means either 16-bit or 32-bit. Usually defaults to 16-bit thumb code. You get a smaller size. Depending on the tool support, you may also use the .n suffix to specify 16-bit thumb instruction. Okay. In most cases, applications will be coded in C. Normally, apart from assembly language, we are writing in C language also, and the C compilers will use 16-bit instructions if possible due to smaller code size. So from the C also, it should be converted to machine instructions, right? So normally it will be 16-bit instruction. However, when the immediate data exceed a certain range, or when the operation can be better handled with the 32-bit thumb instruction, the thumb 2 instruction, the 32-bit instruction will be used. So even in C, by default, it will go for 16-bit, but in certain cases where we need 32 bits, then it will go for 32-bit instruction. Apart from that, the 32-bit thumb 2 instructions can be half word aligned. What do you mean by half word aligned? One word in ARM processors is 32-bit, right? 32-bit in the sense, when you write an instruction, it occupies 32 bits. And normally instructions, they start at word size, word aligned in the sense, they'll be at registers, they'll be at memory locations whose address is a multiple of 4. Because each memory location is 8 bits, 32-bit means it will be 4 memory locations, right? So normally after 4 memory location, you can store each instruction. But these thumb 2 instructions, they can be half word aligned. half word aligned in the sense, suppose you have a 16-bit instruction at 1000 H. This is the address 1000. This is a 16-bit instruction, LDR R0, comma, in the brackets R1. So this is a 16-bit instruction. It will occupy 2 memory locations because each memory location means one particular instruction. So 16-bit instruction means it will occupy 2 memory locations. 16-bit means it is actually half word. So 2 memory locations, 1000 and 1001. Okay. So next there is a 32-bit instruction, R bit. Okay. It's certain thing, reverse bit. R bit stands for reverse bit, dot W, R0. Dot W indicates it's a 32-bit instruction and it needs 4 memory locations. Normally when it's a 32-bit, you know, in other processors and all, normally it will be word aligned. So it should be stored at a multiple of 4. So next address multiple by of 4 is 1004, right? So but here it can start at 1002 because 1002 means it is half word aligned. It's a, you know, it's a 16-bit address can be stored here, but in this case a 32-bit thumb 2 instruction can also be stored at half word aligned addresses. Okay. So most, apart from this, you know, most of the 16-bit instructions, there is a limitation, right? We have seen R0 to R7, they are low registers, right? So most of the 16-bit instructions, they can access only R0 to R7, whereas thumb 32-bit thumb 2 instructions can access all the registers, R0 to R12, right? R0 to R12. Then R13 is program counter, R14 is link register, R15 is PC. Sorry, R13 is the stack pointer, R14 is the link register, R15 is program counter. However, use of PC, that is R15, might not be allowed in some of the instructions. Even 32-bit instructions, sometimes some of the instructions cannot access the program counter or R15. Okay, so that's about the unified assembler language in assembly language program. In the next part, we have certain lists of instructions. Okay, so we will look at these things in the next class. We have instruction list and instruction descriptions. So there are different types of instructions used for based upon where we are using them. Okay, so we are going to study the instructions along with their syntax and the description of how they operate on the respective operands. So we will continue in the next session.